Welcome to Slow Academy. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the project window in Cubase. Let's get started.
Ooh, nah, 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 yeah. Different, definitely different. I can't explain it, but it's more than natural and it's cool as ice. Cool as ice. It's the way I feel when it's so dark. I feel a kind of emptiness inside. I feel lonely when you're not here. I feel lost in the world. Many things are happening. Mornings turning into nights. Weeks are turning into days.
On the project zone, you can add tracks. And for you to create track, you click on the plus sign here, which means add track. And from this box, you can select what track you are adding. Is it audio track, instrument track, sampler track, MIDI track, group track, effect track, VCA, marker, ruler, and folder? We have more tracks that can be added if you are working on a complex project that requires some time change, modulation, or even required you to bring in some video clips. Let's close that for now and concentrate on the major tracks that you can include in your Cubase project. The audio track will hold every audio content either in mono, stereo, or in surround. When you are recording from a mic, you probably be selecting mono. When you are recording from a tape machine, you probably be selecting stereo. And when you are recording sound from multiple sources, then you select respectively the number of source that is going into your audio interface to be recorded in that audio track. Select where the audio signal is coming in from, which will be an input on your audio interface. After that, type in the name of the audio track you are adding and let Cubase know how many of those tracks you are adding. Then add track. Instrument track will allow you to insert an instrument into your project. Select the instrument you would like to use from the list of instruments that have been installed on your system. Type in a name you want to use to identify that instrument. Select the number of the plugin instrument that will be added. Click on Add Track. Sampler is an inbuilt program. When you add one of these, it will allow you to use audio samples to create music in your Cubase project. MIDI is another version of instrument. While instrument can work on their own as a standalone, MIDI relates with an instrument that has already been added to your Cubase project, most likely an instrument that has different channels. Then you can add multiple MIDI and source from the same plugin instrument to play different sounds at the same time. Simply type the name of the instrument you would like to associate with this MIDI track. Click on Add Track or select the number of MIDI you would like to add. Group track will allow you to group different tracks that has been added and make them pass through a single channel, which can be referred to as group or a bus channel. Select the configuration of the group channel depending on the configuration of the tracks you are feeding into this group channel. The group track can set to be grouped in a special folder or just placed along with other tracks. Give the group track a name. If you are adding more than a group, you can select the number of the group track you want to add and click on Add Track. Effect track can also be referred to as the auxiliary. This will allow you to use a single effect for multiple tracks at different weight values. Select the effect that you wish to use among the list of the effects. the configuration depending on the kind of sound you are trying to achieve from the effect. Also, if you like to group this effect among other effects in a particular folder, or just place them along with other tracks. Type the name you wish to call the effect and let Cubase know how many of this effect track is adding. Select Add Track. VCA is a special feather you can associate with tracks to control levels. You can choose to place them in a special folder or just place them randomly along with other tracks. Let Cubase know how many of this VCA you are adding. Marker track will allow you to organize your project by giving them a label. For example, the intro, the verse, the chorus, and the outro, depending on how your project flows. You want to place these labels to be able to identify where each element of the song are coming in and flowing out. Additional ruler can be placed to derive more time information. Rather than reading by bars or beat, you can also be reading them by time. You can manually create a folder to group tracks in order to be organized. For example, you can group all the vocal tracks in one folder, all the brass tracks in another folder. Maybe the drums and the percussion can also be grouped in a special folder. This is very useful when you are working on a large project, usually a multi-track project. Give the folder a name or add more than one. Now that we have gone through the major tracks you can possibly add in Cubase, let's concentrate on the major ones. If we are trying to record a song, we are recording from a mic, then we can add an audio track. My audio input will be from the first channel on my audio interface. Since I'm recording from a mic, I'm selecting mono. My audio output remains the same if I'm not passing it to a different bus or group track. Then I can give the audio track a name. Let's say lead vocal. Then I can add track. This is the audio track I've added. And when I click on record, it's going to record from my mic. Note that the stop and the record button are placed on the transport bar, just below the project zone. Now I can hit the play button or space bar to play back what I've recorded. Okay, what I've recorded is now referred to an audio clip, while this remains the track. You notice some other functions listed by the left zone, which can be brought up by activating, hide, or showing the left zone. From this left zone, you can hit the E to bring out an elaborate function of that track. Here you have the China strip, which are embedded effects that comes with every audio track you had. The gate can be activated for this track. The compressor, the EQ, other tools like the easer and envelope shaper, saturation and limiter can all be activated for each of the audio tracks you have added. You can simply deactivate them by bypassing or by unloading them. The EQ is automatically activated without you enabling it. You cannot unload the equalizer. And to see the elaborate view of this equalizer, you can click on the next tab that follows the China strip. Here you can easily adjust by activating other bands. You can also do an high cut and low cut by activating them. High cut, low cut. You can as well do gaining if you have exhausted your volume. The column by the left side are meant for you to add effects to your tracks, which means that the sound from the clips on this audio track is passed to the first slot of your insert. It goes into the effect and passed to the next slot, and on like that. You will notice a green line here, which distinguish from the pre-slot and the post-slot. You can click on this green line and change the position. This means I'm willing to add 3 effects for the pre-slot and anything that follows will be on the post slot. We will elaborate on the pre and post slot in another video. The next tab is the strip, which is the strip channel you have here. The gate, compressor, EQ, tools, saturation, and limiter. You should know that the equalizer is part of the channel strip, irrespective of its special tab where you can see a larger view of it. At the strip tab, you can change the signal flow. Initially, it was the clip feeding its signal into the insert and passing it through the slots, then passing it onto the strip, which means the signal from the clip hits the first effect, goes to the next effect, before going into the equalizer. You can turn this around by turning the strip to a pre-insert position rather than the post-insert position. Let's hit this button. It takes the strip to the left side, which means the signal from this audio clip will go straight into any of this effect that has been activated, which means it passes the signal from the audio clip through this equalizer before hitting the first effect on your insert slot. You should also be aware that this channel strip can be moved around. You can decide that the signal hits the equalizer before hitting the gate and passing it on to the compressor. You can also bring the saturation next to the compressor before hitting the deesser or an envelope shaper. By the right side, you can even create another outlet from this audio track into another track. This is where the auxiliary track is useful, which is called the effect track. Q-Send can be used when you have activated the control room. It is used to pass signal to different performers in a live session. Okay, enough of that. Let's try to add more audio tracks. We can also add more tracks by right-clicking on an empty area here and selecting the kind of track we want to add. In this case, we are adding audio track. Now you'll be given an option concentrating on the audio track to select the number of audio tracks you want to add. Let's add 2. In this case, we will ignore the name slot. Let's add tracks. Now we have added 2 additional audio tracks. We can double click on the initial name that has been given to these audio tracks. Double click and type in the name of your choice. Let's say duet. Before hitting the enter key after typing the name, you can hit the tab button on your keyboard to move to the next audio track for renaming. Let's type hard lip, then enter. The color to this audio track can be changed by positioning your mouse upon this area, hold down the Alt key and screw on your mouse. You can as well just hit this little arrow here to select the color of your choice. Okay, if our audio interface has multiple inputs and we want to receive signal from another mic or another instrument, which is feed into a different input on our audio interface, then we can come to this side and select a different input. There are so many functions loaded on the audio track, like the track versions, the chords, the notepad, the chord send, and the quick controls. Another video will be made for this to expatiate on these functions. Enough of the audio track. Let's go ahead and talk about another track. Apart from the plus sign here or right clicking on the empty area, you can as well go to the project menu and go to add track. Select the kind of track that you wish to add. Is it audio, instrument, MIDI, or sampler? This time we want to go for the instrument. Now concentrating on the instrument track, let's select an instrument. Instead of looking for the instrument, if you have so many instruments on the list, you can simply type the name of the instrument. Let's type mini grand. And before you complete typing, you would have seen the instrument listed. Select the instrument, type a name for it, let's say piano. We're adding just one copy of this plugin and select Add Track. We can reposition this track by clicking and dragging. You can see the green line showing the position where the track will be placed. I can decide to take it to the up or bring it down. This track can be expanded by putting your mouse just right below the audio track and pulling it down. You can do the same thing by the right and pulling it to the side. For whatever reason, you might want to expand this view, because the more you expand, the more options you can view. Now let me contrast them. You can see I'm seeing lesser options here. Then I can expand to see even more options. The same thing here. Now pulling it down, you will notice a box here. This box is for putting a track picture. If you are someone that likes to design your view, double click on this box and you will be presented with different icons. Now let's look for an icon that looks like a piano. Let's use this or this. Beautiful, right? Yeah, it's inspiring and it makes me want to start playing the chord. At this time, you want to be working with your metronome. This is the metronome on the transport bar. Activate the metronome, and when you hit your play or your space bar on your keyboard. All right, let's smooth this for now and go on with the metronome count. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can decide to increase the tempo or bring it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's increase it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I have a tempo on mind, I can double click on it and type in the tempo. Let's say 100. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can as well use the tempo tapper by hitting the project and going to the beat calculator. You will be given a box that will allow you to tap the tempo. So when you hit the tap tempo, you'll be presented with another box where you can just click on your mouse according to the tempo of the song on your mind. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, this is around 118 BPM. Let's say OK to this. Close. Then I can double click here and type in 118. Always try to keep your tempo in a round figure. Don't say 118.926. That will be difficult for other producers to collaborate on your project. Now we can play some music by hitting the record button. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is a clip we just record. I can double click on this, and what happened? The lower zone has been triggered. You can take it off by hiding the lower zone, bring it back up by activating the lower zone, just like the left zone. The left zone will hold other track function, things you can do with this track, the chord function and the MIDI insert function, including the quick controls. For now, let's concentrate on the lower zone. To zoom your editor view, hold down the control on your window keyboard and screw your mouse. You can do the same thing by pressing the G and H key on the keyboard. You can simply achieve the same thing by using this slider, and this is the vertical zoom, while this is the horizontal zoom. It might still be difficult to work in this editor view even when you are trying to resize it. The best way is to hit this button here, which will open this editor view in a separate window. Now you have it. You can zoom, select the first chord, and press Q on your keyboard to quantize. Okay, let's undo that and zoom a little bit more. You can see that this chord is not starting on the line. Quantizing will allow all the notes in the chord to align. Let's press Q again on the keyboard for quantize. You can also define the way which this quantize work by selecting a different grid. Immediately I select 1/32, I notice that an additional grid line appears, which means I can select this chord and put them here or quantize them here. But when I was in 1/16, I cannot. I can only go as far as this 1 bit. I can also go as far as 1 bit. For 1/32, I can go even as quarter bit. More function of the quantize can be opened to even have a special quantizing in case of jazz music. Let's not go deep into that. Close the editor view and close the lower zone. Let's place our mouse on the ruler and clicking around 3 where the music starts. We can as well resize this clip, but as you see, it's not following the grid and you might not be able to resize perfectly on the line. What you have to do is activate the snap, which will enable the clip to snap to grid. When we activate this and we move this slightly, you can see it's sliding to grid. Okay, now it's moving, sliding by beat. When you zoom it, you find that it's snapping by beat, and this is because we have selected the beat. We can decide to change it to bar, and you see that it's snapped by bar. You can even snap by smaller unit by going to use quantize, and you can even go smaller. Okay, for now let's stay on bar. Enough of the instrument track. We will make a different video to elaborate on working with MIDI and instrument. For now, let's create MIDI track. But instead of hitting the plus sign to create it, or right clicking on the empty area here, or going to the project and hitting add track, we can as well just hit the T on the keyboard as a shortcut. T will bring out the add track box, where we can select the MIDI. Let's type the name of the instrument we wish to associate with this MIDI track. Let's say string. Hit add track. Now our MIDI needs to be connected to an instrument. And because we have initially added an instrument up here, this MIDI is routed to that instrument. We can change that by adding a different instrument. This time, we want to add another instrument. The easiest way to do this is by going to the right zone. Let's bring it up, the right zone. And here we go to the VSTI tab. This is the mini ground we earlier added. Now you can see the track and the rack. When you add an instrument, it is placed at the top, which is the track, instrument track. When you add a rack instrument, it is associated with the MIDI tracks. Now in this case, instead of clicking on the add track instrument, we will click on the add rack instrument. Let's add expand too. Now when you add this, it will automatically prompt you to create a MIDI track and assign this instrument to it. But since we have created one earlier, we can choose to ignore this. The instrument is now placed in a special folder called the VST instrument. Let's close this up. Then we can bring up the expand instrument either by hitting this edit instrument button here. Now Mini Grand is launched because we are yet to connect this MIDI track to the new Expand 2 instrument. You can also load the instrument by clicking on the E button here at the right zone. Now this is the Expand 2. Expand 2 provides 4 channels. You can insert different instruments. You can mix this instrument to play at once or even connect them to MIDI tracks separately. Now, this is why MIDI is very useful. If you are to add this track as an instrument track, you can apply a voice and use on that instrument track. And to add another voice from this same plugin, you will have to create another instrument track, which will load another copy of this instrument. By so doing, you are overloading your CPU. But MIDI will allow you to use this single plugin for 4 different MIDI tracks. Now let's connect this MIDI track, which is the string, to the first channel on our Expand 2 instrument. The first slot, you can see the MIDI channel is number 1. For the second one, let's select 2. For the third one, let's select 3. And for the fourth one, let's select 4. We have other VST instrument that provides even more than 4 channels, which you can use along with MIDI tracks. Now let's connect this MIDI track to the Expand 2. By selecting the output routing here, we can change the Mini Grand to Expand 2. But the MIDI channel is set to 2 on our MIDI track. Let's change it to 1. Now we have connected this MIDI track to this Expand 2 instrument and channeled it to channel 1, which is massive pad. We can change this instrument by clicking on this bus and selecting a different instrument. But for now, I love the sound of the initial tone that is there, which is a massive pad. Now let's record along with the piano. Hit the record button and let's play. You can double click and do the same editing on your notes just as we did on the piano track. Okay, let's hide the lower zone and create more MIDI tracks. Let's create 3 additional MIDI tracks. The plus sign here for add tracks and select MIDI. Change the count to 3, which means it's going to add 3 MIDI tracks. Double click on the MIDI 01 to rename. Let's type flute. The next one can be another instrument and the next can be another. Now let's route these 3 MIDI tracks to our Expand 2. The Expand 2 has automatically been selected as the instrument, and I believe the channel has automatically been updated. The flute now being the number 2, MIDI 02 to channel 3, and MIDI 03 to channel 4. Let's load our Expand 2 and see how this works. The flute, which is channel 2, will take the sound that is loaded in part 2. Let's load a flute sound. Okay, similar thing to channel 3. Let's add a soft lead, and you can do the same thing to channel 4. Let's load a guitar sound. Okay, let's double click MIDI 03 and call it a dirty guitar. On the flute, we can play some music. Let's talk about the sampler. This time, I'm going to hit the T on my keyboard as the shortcut to add tracks. Go to Sampler, type the name, and hit Add Track. This time, I want to add a kick. Click on Add Track. I can move the sampler track around and put it wherever I want. Now, all you need to do is to drop a sample here from your system. or you load them by clicking on this little folder icon here. Now let me go into some samples that are here and look for a kick sample. You can preview. Okay, it's going to be loaded into the sampler. Okay, let's play something with this. Hit the record button and let's record. Note that we are just showing an example how all these tracks work, but there are more to them. We'll make another video especially on sampler and each of all those tracks, so you can see various things that you can do with these tracks. Let's close the lower zone and double click on this kick. Ctrl A to select all the notes and hit the Q button on the keyboard to quantize, or simply click on this Q to apply quantize. Then let's preview. You can see what's going on around here. It's not properly quantized. This is because of the quantize preset you have selected. Let's make this even bigger, 1/4. We can undo the previous quantize and reapply the quantize. Ctrl A to select all the notes, then Q to quantize. Another thing you notice is the slot that was here. The note has been quantized, which changes the intention of the player. I select the first one, hit the control to select the second one, and hold the control key while you move the notes. This will bypass the snap, because without it, you cannot gently move it. It's going to snap by grid. But holding the control, you can just slide along to take it to the position where you want it. Let's do the same thing to this. All right. These are the major tracks that you can add and use in Cubase projects. Thank you for staying tuned to the end of the lecture. Remember to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we drop new videos. If you like our content, please remember to give this video a thumb up. And if there is something you want us to explain, please drop it in the comment box. We love your thumb up and we love your comments.
The beat
Got me wanna stay with you all night long.